This morning, I want to talk about the really fascinating herd dynamics that have evolved over the last few weeks since the herd's been all together. And at first, I wasn't sure what was going on, but I think I have figured it out. The most surprising thing for me has been that Rayleigh is often still a little off by himself, or sometimes a lot off by himself from the rest of the herd. And that wasn't what I expected bringing another gelding in, and especially seeing how, what a lovely friendship he and Shiloh developed initially. But I am now, at this point, convinced that even though Shiloh was only 4 years old when he was rounded up, that he already had a little band of his own with, one or two or maybe more mares. And by then he could have actually even had his first crop of foals, because young stallions do usually leave the natal band between 2 and 3 years of age. So if he went straight into, having a little band of his own versus spending a lot of time in a bachelor band, he could have already had a little family of his own. But what makes me think that is that he spends almost all of his time with Puck and Tempo. And they, amazingly now, are letting him be with both of them. He eats at the hay net with the two of them. He works on those relationships pretty much all day, and then we'll, for a little bit of time, check in with Rayleigh, and then go back to the mares. And I'm rarely ever seeing, other than when I have Puck tied and she's doing medications, and sometimes Rayleigh comes over to, hold space with us. I'm rarely seeing Rayleigh with either of the mares anymore. Not that I saw that a lot because Puck and Tempo were so tight, but I would see it. And Rayleigh just stays on the outskirts. But I'm finding that even though Rayleigh's on the outskirts, he's still more engaged with the herd than he used to be. I can tell by his alignment, I can tell by just his demeanor. And he also seems more content, even though he's having less direct interaction with the horses. I'll come over here and see if you can get a different view of this. But in the wild, it's not uncommon for a band stallion who has another stallion that's a good friend, that they trust and respect, who serves as their lieutenant. And it's interesting. Typically, those stallions are really smart. And obviously, they have good diplomacy skills if they have a friendship like that with another stallion. But in those bands, it's the lieutenant who actually does a lot of the work for the band. Stays on the outskirts, warns of predators, keeps a lookout, also does most of the interacting and negotiations with other stallions or other bands that come by. Interesting. So Rayleigh just came to do some scratching, and the whole herd shifted to kind of make a connection with him. Let's see what happens here. So here's a moment of real balance where you have Rayleigh and Shiloh on each end and the two mares in the middle. So this is about as close as I've seen them all together. We'll see what Rayleigh does here. It's kind of a lovely time of them all together. But you see how Rayleigh doesn't really interact with the mares, even though Puck was on this side. And in the past, if Puck was the closest, he used to try to talk to her, or sometimes even try to boss her around. And then do you see how he now is positioning himself off a ways? He didn't even go directly up to Shiloh. They do sometimes still interact briefly, maybe a little bit of play for 30 seconds, and then Shiloh usually, gets a little stronger than what Rayleigh likes, kind of to say, yep, we're friends and you're the lieutenant, but I'm still the man here. But it's not, it's gentle, but it's enough, and Rayleigh kind of walks off. And so Shiloh allows the mares, I don't want to say allows, the mares still spend a lot of time together like this. I do find there are certain situations, especially around resources, where Shiloh is still making it very clear to Tempo that he wants to have individual relationships with both of them, at least eventually. But I think his biggest concern is that his little band of mares stay together and accept him and honor his role in the herd. And you see Shiloh and Rayleigh not exactly lined up with bodies, but they're having a little moment here. So it's all really fascinating, but I feel like Shiloh has literally schooled my domestic herd into understanding what proper organization is in the wild. And I'm amazed at how well they have, I guess, acquiesced to that, or just, agreed to it. Even Tempo, which is so surprising. They still all have their kind of little squabbles like a family would. And Shiloh definitely, it's not like he bosses everybody else around all the time or anything. In fact, he often lets the mares kind of push him off things, or tell him where to be, or definitely tell him where the boundaries are. And it's really fascinating to watch the moments when he decides he needs to, speak up and kind of say, look, at the end of the day, I'm the band stallion here. But a lot of the time, the mares do kind of run the show still, and they pretty much choose where everybody goes, and he follows them. And again, here now we're having Rayleigh and Shiloh have some bonding time, but it's not the playful, mutual grooming, intimate type of bonding time that it kind of was at the beginning. It's a lot more just sort of like we have mutual respect, and let's see what happens here. Yeah, nice closeness there, but no physical contact. I'm just fascinated. So thanks for going with me on this little journey, but it really seems like Shiloh is bringing some wild back into my herd, or rewilding them to understand a little more about what healthy, natural herd dynamics would be, even though obviously there's a lot of things very unnatural about this herd as always, but Shiloh seems to have brought as much naturalness into it as he can in this situation. I'll keep you posted on this.